later.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So welcome everybody. Happy Navaratri. So today is the third day of Navaratri last day dedicated to Durga, the energy of the warrior, the peaceful warrior. So the one who steps in to help clear away what is standing in front of us that puts us in that aggressive state, right? And we never thought of it that way, right? That's really what she does, is she steps in not to destroy our enemies. That's never the point. Is she steps in to destroy the situation, dissolve the situation that is causing you to go into an aggressive state, right? So that's what it means to come into that peaceful place, or to be the peaceful warrior, is that your desire is not to get rid of something. Your desire is to eradicate the aggression, right? So when we're out in the world, that's what we're asked to do, is can you live in the world in a way where you are aware of what triggers your own aggression? And can you notice how that's being triggered in other people, so that when you are responding to them, instead of reacting, you're responding to them, you have the chance to diffuse the aggression. Because it doesn't matter ultimately who, quote, wins and who loses. What matters is, can we find a way where the aggression turns into something else, right? So that's what we're practicing with the energy of Durga. And so today, obviously, the pose that we have to be focused on is goddess pose, which is super fun, high squat. But it's a powerful pose, and it's really easy, right, to get into it, or to try to get into it, by just using the big muscles of the body. And you'll find that the more you try to grip into the muscles, the more you try to grip and say, I'm going to force myself to stay in this position, that's aggression, right? That's what we're learning, is that if that's what we're doing in our poses, if we're just gripping, then that's an aggressive way of treating our bodies. That is what leads us to the potential of creating injury from practicing, right? So that's what we're trying to learn how to not do automatically, but we're actually looking for how to engage consciously and find the internal strength. So not just the big muscles, but a lot of those muscles along the spine, a lot of those internal muscles that help us stay really erect, and that also allow the legs to be open, allow the shoulders to be open. So it's kind of still the straight up and down, the spine, the back that has to be strong, and the joints, the shoulders and the hips, that have to be flexible, right? And so this is that intersection of how do we live in the world and we have presence, but we don't become aggressive, right? We stay flexible, that we can see things from many angles. We can appreciate things from many angles. So that's the energy of the goddess pose, is that you are that energy. And again, I'm using Durga's name today because still her time. But any of the goddesses offer that same thing to us, right? You experience the fullness of life without shutting down and without rejecting it. So it's not always through aggression that we do that, but with Durga, that's one of the big trigger words, right? So take a comfortable seat if you're not there already. Let the eyes close. In Durga, they say you can visualize her image. She is a beautiful woman, young, long dark hair, dark eyes. She wears red. She rides on a lion or a tiger. And she has many arms, 10 arms, 12 arms. The number varies. And in each of her arms, she's carrying a tool or a weapon. So she has a sword, she has a trident, she has a discus. She also holds a lotus, conch shell. There are many, many things that we have at our disposal to meet the world, to dispel that feeling of aggression and violence. So just imagine her for a moment, and then imagine yourself as that you have many arms. And every arm is holding something useful. And hold the image, bring the hands together in front of the heart, palm to palm. We'll open with the sound of Om, deep breath in. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. You can release your hands, please. And then just bring your hands to your knees, your thighs. Do a little bit of cat and cow just to move the spine, and being very aware of, especially if you're seated cross-legged, but you can feel this if you're sitting on your shins as well. Be aware of the tilt of your pelvis as you're doing that seated cat and cow. So you're actually taking the action of your spine from the tilt of your pelvis. So the inhale, you are tilting the pelvis forward. The top of the pelvis tilts towards the floor as your heart lifts. Then as you exhale, the top of the pelvis lifts up and tips back. Good. So you're actually rocking on your pelvis as you're doing that seated cat and cow. Good. Right. And this is incredibly important because that rotation of the pelvis and how your legs are connected to the hips as you rotate the pelvis is what makes it possible for goddess pose to go wider. Right? And it's not necessary for it to be wide in order, or for the turnout to be very wide for goddess pose to be helpful. We actually want to find what the natural turnout is for our legs. Good. Come back to stillness, please. Nice. Walk the right hand out wide from the right hip. So just walk your fingertips out. Take your left arm over the ear, side body stretch. Good. And again, walk yourself out far onto those right fingertips. That's it. And then maybe you can drop the forearm down to the floor. You can come onto your right elbow. Good. And then push that left hip back down to the floor. Yeah. Nice. So again, that making space between the trunk and the hip and the leg. So as you drop that opposite hip, opens up a little bit more room, a little bit more space on the side that is stretching. Come all the way back up. Good. Go the other way. Bring the left hand out and down. Right arm comes over the ear. And again, walk out far enough so that you can maybe drop down onto your elbow. Good. And then you're pushing your right hip down to the floor. So I'm not so interested with you leaning more to the left. You're already doing that, but push down through that right hip so that you're actually really stretching that low part of your trunk, of your side body, but you're doing it from the lower body, not from trying to make the upper body get more open. Good. And then come all the way back up to center. Nice. Come to sit on your butt if you're not there already. Bring the bottoms of the feet together in front of you. Grab your block or grab a block. Good. So Baddha Konasana, you're going to start with your block, right? And its narrowest setting between the feet. So place the block between your feet. So the bottoms of your feet should be able to push into the block. Yeah. And if you need a prop underneath your seat, a blanket or something like that, feel free to have that. You can totally do that here. Good. And then a little bit maybe of a longer Baddha Konasana than you would normally do. So feet a little bit further away from your pelvis. Good. Yeah. So push your feet into the block, curl your toes back, and feel now that the whole outside edge of the leg starts to become active. So you push the feet in, you might see your knees rise up as your legs get more active. Awesome. Then start to walk forward, keep pushing your feet into the block, forward fold. And again, recognize that there's a little tilt that happens from your pelvis. So the top of the pelvis is tilting forward. Good. And as those knees squeeze up towards your side ribs, if you accentuate that, bring those knees up and push your butt down. Good. So the inner thighs and the outer hips have to work to bring those knees up, and then groins down, sit bones down. And then see if you can tilt your pelvis forward, tip it forward a little bit more. Right? So you notice that. So with the legs dropping wide, this is external rotation. And when you start to pull the knees back up and in, you're internally rotating more. So when you internally rotate, usually we have a little bit more room to tilt the pelvis. Then you can let the knees go wide again and see how much rotation is really available. Good. Walk yourself back up. Good. Stretch your legs straight out in front of you. You can leave the block where it is, but take your feet straight out in front of you. Separate your feet about as wide as your mat, so a little wider than your hips. Good. Flex your feet. You can use a strap here around your feet if you'd like, or simply forward fold, reaching for the ankles or the feet, whatever you can have hold of. Good. Hold on to something though, and then inhale, long spine, drag the elbows back, chest forward. So you have, again, the tilt from your pelvis. Good. Dig down through your heels, navel in, and then bend your elbows, come into forward fold. And again, this is early, right? This is second official pose that you've done in the class. So don't make yourself crazy. Don't get aggressive thinking that, oh my God, I have to really get somewhere here. What we're working with is just opening the lower spine, opening the hamstrings, opening through the groins, opening the pelvis so that when we get to more rotation, there's more rotation available. That's all. Good. Bring yourself all the way back up. Bend your knees again. You're coming back to Baddha Konasana. This time you're going to take your block to its next widest setting. So this way between the feet. Good. And same thing, bottoms of the feet should be able to push up against the block, a little bit of a longer diamond. If it's a little bit closer than the last one was, that's okay, but a little bit of a longer diamond is advisable. And then same thing, as you push your feet into the block, feel the legs activate all the way up to the top of your hips. So those knees might squeeze up a little bit. Good. And then start to tilt your pelvis, walk forward, forward fold. Nice. And because of the block, again, it's already widening the rotation of your legs. It's already widening and activating those or stretching those outer hip muscles more because the block is wider. So push your feet into that block, keep the legs engaged as you tilt your pelvis forward, forward fold. Good. See, the thing about if you want to increase flexibility is you want to kind of move in and out of positions. You don't want to just keep hammering home the same position over and over and over again, thinking that it's going to get you somewhere. You want to actually move the body in and out, in and out, in and out, so that it starts to recognize, right, the connections of your joints. It starts to recognize what movements you're trying to facilitate. You're lubricating joints. Good. Walk yourself back up, please. Stretch your legs forward to straight again. Same position, feet as wide as your mat. Again, you can use a strap around the feet if you'd like, or reach forward to find your ankles or your feet, whatever you can comfortably hold. Dig your heels down so that even here, you're not aggressively straightening your knees. You're not locking your knees. And then long spine, arms straight. Pull those arm bones up into the shoulder socket and then bend your elbows wide as you come into the forward fold so that it's a chest opening. Good. So Susan, hold some part of your legs and elbows wide, almost like you're doing like a pull-up. There you go. Good. Nice. Because goddess pose, again, the shoulders and the hips mirror each other. So if you only pay attention to it's a high squat, that's the hard part. And you don't pay any attention to the rest of your back, you're going to struggle. Good. Walk yourself all the way back up. Nice job. Now here's where I will suggest that you go for this option, even if your hips are a little cranky. But if you really feel like you're kind of maxing out your happiness of your hips with the block here, you can stay, come back to this level with the block. If you want to go a little wider, turn your block this way between your feet. So it's the widest setting. Knees bent. And again, a little bit of a longer diamond. So you're not trying to force the heels close to the groins. Good. Use whatever props you need underneath you. Pressing the feet into the block, toes curled back. Feel that activation where the knees come up slightly, but you're pushing down through your sit bones. Tilt your pelvis forward and take your forward fold. Keep the legs engaged so that you're constantly pushing your feet into the block. Good. Nice, you guys. Yeah, press your groins down. Again, what we're doing here is we're helping to set this foundation of the relationship of your thigh bone and your hip socket. Good. And so here you're externally rotated just the way you will be later in the pose, and you're activating those muscles of your outer hips. Walk yourself back up. Nice. Stretch your legs straight out in front of you. Go a little wider with your legs this time, so like you're going into a full straddle. Good. Again, prop underneath your seat. Totally fine. Good. Legs straight. Nice. And then fingertips to the floor, start to walk forward, forward fold. Nice. Aware of the pelvis tilting forward. And as the pelvis tilts forward, it might feel like there's a tendency for the toes to start to roll inward as well, that everything just wants to fall in, roll in. So you actually have to activate, right? Tops of the thighs, draw back, heels dig down, pelvis tilts forward. Good. And then wherever you are, come to straight arms. So maybe you walk your fingertips out more, but then press down into your fingers, press down into your hands and drag back. So isometrically, you're dragging back. You're not actually going to move anywhere. But as you pull back on the arms, pulling the arms up into the shoulder socket, feel your spine get longer, like your hands are trying to drag you along the floor. And the only reason that you can't is because you're pushing your legs back and down so much. So press into your hands, drag back strong, traction your spine. Good. And then come all the way back up. Keep the legs wide, dig your heels down, pop your knees up. Good. And pull, yeah, so up high. And then bring those thighs again down into the hip socket, groins down. Good, but you're squeezing the legs in, kind of like a spidery legs pulling in. Good. Watch that your toes aren't turning all the way out. So you want them to be right in that place where they're kind of neutral, right up and down. And then pelvis tilt slightly forward, walk yourself straight ahead, keep the knees bent. You got it. Good. And same thing with the arms. Drag back on your fingertips, drag back on your hands so that you are literally from your arms pulling your spine longer, chest up, throat up. Nice. And every one of these positions, again, hip work is a place where we can easily get aggressive because we just think that if we push hard enough, the legs will do what we want them to do. It's not true. Good. Walk yourself back up, please. Nice job. Let the legs come back to straight. Bring them forward, back together. Good. Bend your knees, please. Good. Separate your feet as wide as your mat. Take your fingertips just back behind you. Good. Feet flat on the floor, Steve. Good. And then just let your legs drop right and left. So windshield wiper right and left with the knees. Good. The next time the knees drop to the right, let them drop all the way to the right, and then walk your torso around to the right, same direction. So you're going to face the back of your mat, come down onto your forearms facing the back of your mat. Keep your feet just as wide as they are. Good. Yeah. I can never quite remember the exact name of the sage that this twist is named for. It begins with a B, but I can't quite remember his name exactly. The stories of any of the sages and the stories of the goddess are always that there is an enemy to be overcome. So we think of this energy of peace, or we think of this energy of wholeness, and we say, okay, well, if that's all there is, then how can that be a part of conflict? How can that be a part of violence? But every single story of a saint or a sage or the goddess herself is that there's a reason for us to realize that that peaceful energy exists. And how we're reminded of it is when there are those conflicts that push at us. When there's things that cause us to go into that reactive state, the aggression to protect ourselves. It's how we remember compassion. So don't reject that. But don't give into it either. Come all the way back to center, please. So lifting yourself back up, coming back onto your butt, knees facing straight up towards the ceiling. Nice. You're going to go to the other side. So drop your knees to the left, feet as wide as your mat. And then walk yourself around, same direction. And again, you can always hear if the hips or the knees are not super happy in this position, you can put something underneath that knee that is back behind you. So the back leg or the hip that's on top. In this case, it would be your right knee. If you needed to put a blanket underneath there or something like that, take some of the intensity out. But then resting on the forearm, some of you could even go even lower onto your belly if you wanted to. Good. But we can't reject the things that push at us, because they're the tools. They're exactly the tools that bring us back to an awareness of compassion, that bring us back to an awareness of peace. So in yoga, it said that, our enlightenment or our state of full realization is fundamentally what we are, but things disturb that. And when our mind is disturbed, we don't see it. And so we get mad at the disturbances and say, if it wasn't for you, I would feel this way, or I would be this, or I'd be an enlightened being. You are an enlightened being. You just happen to be distracted by disturbances. So if you're no longer distracted by the disturbance, but instead are seeking to resolve the disturbance back into peace, that's what we call practice. And that's what the goddess calls us to do. She says, really? You want me to defeat this situation? She says, this situation is how you're finding yourself. This is your wisdom. This is your enlightenment. Don't reject it. If you reject the disturbance, you're also rejecting the enlightenment that comes from it. So one more breath. The goddess is tricky. She doesn't let us get away with anything. And then come all the way back up. The other gods, they let us get away with a lot. The goddess, you get away with nothing, because she's mom, right? She's the mom energy. Good. Cross the ankles, please. Roll forward onto hands and knees. Come into child's pose for a moment. Good. And again, even this is a little bit of external rotation. If your knees are wider than your hips, as you're creating a little bit of external rotation on your hips. So squeeze those knees in, even though your knees are wide, just a little bit, hug in, scoop your belly, drop your butt towards your heels. Good. And again, this helps give you a muscular activation of your hips that can actually relieve that tension that many of us have at our lower back that we don't realize is because our hips are pulling, our hips are tight. Good. Come all the way back up, please. Nice. Downward facing dog. Good. Take your right ankle over your left thigh and down dog. Yep, right ankle stacks on left thigh. And then bend your left knee. Good, bringing the knee forward. Good, Kristen, you can put that foot to the inside of the thigh if crossing it over doesn't work. Yeah, there you go. And then butt goes back. And again, this is to have the idea that you can be rotated in your thigh and still reaching long through your spine. Good, one more deep breath, pull those hips back. Nice. And then start to release, please. Straighten the left leg, swing the right leg up and back behind you, down dog split. So right leg up and back. Good. And then step that right foot forward between the hands. Good. Inhale, both arms to the sky, high lunge. Yep. Nice. So reaching long from your armpits, reach up, reach up, reach up. So squeeze the legs together and then pull your shoulders up away from your hips. So I want you to actually feel like you're pulling your spine up off of your legs. Good. Your back thigh is going to lift a little higher, and then send your right knee forward a little more, but keep pulling up. It's like you're hanging from a rope. You're hanging from something. You're pulling up. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor. Nicely done. Good. Step back, downward facing dog. Nice, you guys. Left ankle comes on top of right thigh. Good. Bend the right knee. Yeah, so that right knee is pulling forward towards your belly. And as you bring your butt back, watch that your lower spine doesn't go into a big arch, right? Your ribs are front ribs staying soft in, and it's almost like you really want to fold through those thigh creases. So you're dropping your tail towards your heel. Good. One more breath. Pull those legs towards your belly. Draw your chest back towards your legs. Nice. And then slowly unwind, straighten that right leg. Take the left leg up and back behind you. Down dog split. Good. And then step the left foot forward between the hands. Inhale, both arms to the sky. High lunge. Nice. And again, squeeze the feet towards each other so that you have the power of your legs, and then pull up. Good. Again, like there's a rope above you and you're using that to drag down. You feel the armpits lift and pull through your spine, get taller, pull your chest up away from your hips, pull your shoulders up away from your hips. because this is the action I want you to have when we get to goddess, is this feeling that my legs are steady and moving wide, but my chest, my spine is pulling up. That's it. And then release the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Good. Take both hands inside the front foot, walk to your right until you come to the center of your mat. Turn your toes so you're in wide legs, Prasarita Padottanasana. Good. Nice, you guys. And then bend your knees just a little bit. Yeah, drop into your feet. That's the whole point. So again, nothing complicated here. Just bend your knees, drop into your feet. And then scoop your belly, take your butt to the sky, straighten the legs without losing your feet. Good. And then do it again. Bend your knees, drop into your feet. Good. So you feel your heels plant a little bit more. That's it. Let your weight settle into your feet. And then scoop your belly, start to take your butt to the sky, but don't lose your feet. Keep pushing down through the legs. Good. We used to say it all the time as a cue. We used to say we root to rise, right? We push down through the legs in order to feel a lift through the upper body or through the spine. One more time, bend your knees, drop into your heels. Good. And then scoop your belly, take your butt towards the sky. Hug your feet together, but widen your thighs. Nice. And then right hand plants right underneath your shoulder. Take your left arm to the sky, spinal twist. Good. Pushing into that right hand as you come into the twist. So pushing into the right hand helps open the left chest a little higher. Nice. Release and switch. Left hand down to the floor, right arm to the sky. Good. Again, pushing into the left hand to open the right side chest. Release and switch. Right hand to the floor, left arm to the sky. Good. This is also that Shakti concept, right? That Shakti is always moving. So goddess pose, it looks like it's standing still, but you shouldn't be static. Left hand down to the floor, right arm to the sky. Good. One more time. Right hand down to the floor, left arm to the sky. And left hand down, right arm up. And then release both hands. Nicely done. Turn your right toes out to 45 degrees, so the turn out halfway. Good. So not all the way towards the back of your mat, just halfway. And then start to bend your right knee into a side lunge. So your knee points towards second or third toe. So this starts to tell you, right, if your knee is not tracking over that second or third toe in the angle that you have your foot and you can't get it there, change the angle of your foot, right? Turn your foot so that it meets with what your knee is willing to do. And then widen that left inner thigh. So pull back into the straight leg. Good. And then straighten the right leg, turn your toes forward again, come back to center and go the other way. Turn your left toes out 45 degrees, so halfway, and then start to bend your knee, see where it tracks. If you're able to widen it comfortably to have it meet in line with that second or third toe, keep your foot where it is. If not, move your foot. Change the angle of your foot so that your knee can track where it needs to track. And then push wide into your right leg, your extended leg. Yeah. And then come back to center, straighten the legs and bow, turn your toes. Good. Nice job. Hold opposite elbows for a moment, let yourself hang. Beautiful. And then hands back to the floor. Please walk back towards the top of your mat. Turn your left toes forward. Good. Spin the right heel up. Step back, downward facing dog. Good. Drop down to your knees, please. Good. Cross your right thigh in front of your left. So right knee comes in front of your left. There you go. Separate your feet, walk yourself back until your butt finds the floor between your feet. So if you need a block or a blanket to place under your seat, do that. Feet are flexed. Grab your strap if it is within reach. Good. And then you're going to hold the strap in your left hand. Left arm comes up to the sky, bend the elbow. So the left hand's going to come back behind your heart, holding the strap. So use the strap in your left hand, hanging behind you. Right arm extends wide to the right, turn the palm to face back, take those fingers down, and then bend the elbow, reach back to find the trailing end of the strap. Watch that right shoulder doesn't fall in, doesn't hunch forward. So what that means is you might have to bring that right hand wider towards the outside edge of your back so your elbow can come forward so the top of your shoulder can open. Yeah, you got it, Kristen. And then as you're holding the strap, pull top, forward and up and down, up and down, pull in both directions. And then soften your ribs in, drop your seat. So whatever the rotation of the legs, whatever the rotation of the shoulders, that central column of your back, of your spine, is supporting itself. So groins down, lift through the back of your throat. Good, ribs soften in. Nice. Good, you guys, release the strap, please. Release the arms. If you can fold forward here, fold forward. If not, keep your fingertips on the floor just behind you, maybe leaning back into your hands. Good. Soften your ribs there, Kristen. Good. It is one of those secret tricks that if you really want to work flexibility in your hips externally, you want to feel that, you have to actually work internal rotation for most of us. Again, Kristen's looking at me like I'm crazy. But it's true. For most of us, working internal rotation makes external rotation more available. So this position is internally rotating. Walk yourself back up. Good. It also does challenge the muscles on the outer thigh and hip though. So if you're wondering why it's still difficult, that's why. Good. Unwind your legs, please. Roll forward to hands and knees. Good. Do some cat and cow. Again, so that you're working the tilt of your pelvis. You're working the orientation, again, the rotation of the shoulder blades that are working with the rotation of your sacrum, of your pelvis. Because both of those areas have to be in alignment with each other for goddess pose to make sense. And that's what we're looking at, is the relationship between the two so that they can both be neutral. While the arms are open, the shoulders are open, the hips are open. The shoulders and hips are mirroring each other. So don't just focus on the legs and think that the arms don't matter. Nice. There's some traditions where the goddesses said, you know, the position, the high squat position looks an awful lot like, you know, old traditional birth positions. So there's that concept that, of course, the goddess is the one that births the world. She's the energy of the manifested world. And so from her comes everything. So everything that you think of as an enemy came from the same mother that you did. It's your brothers and your sisters. Come back to stillness, please. Take your left leg in front of your left knee in front of your right knee. Separate your feet, walk yourself back until your butt finds the floor between your heels or finds your blocks or whatever you're sitting on. Again, flexing the feet if the knees are stacked. And if this position really doesn't work for the knees, you can sit cross-legged with the left shin in front of the right instead. Good. Feet flexed either way. Then grab your strap, please. And you're going to hold the strap in your left hand, hanging behind you, or right hand. Sorry, right hand, hanging behind you, bend the elbow. And then left arm extends out to the left, turn the palm, reach down, and then bend the elbow to reach up for that strap, watching how much you have to contort your spine to find the strap. So try to get right inside rib cage to be level with each other. So Susan, scoot your left rib cage wider to the left, or lift your left rib cage longer. There you go. Yep. Good. And then again, that bottom hand might have to come wider towards the outside of your spine so that there's more space for the elbow to fall forward and the top of the arm bone to open. And then pull on the strap up and down. And then soften your ribs and drop your seat. Good. So everything that you see in the world, whatever emotional states, whatever reactions you see, these are all things that are metaphorically being birthed, right, from individuals. And all of it exists inside of you. It might not be the things that you choose to highlight or act upon or focus on. It might not be the way that you choose to interact in the world, but it all is inside of you somewhere. So this is the root of compassion that says that we all have the same opportunities in our experience. We might be triggered differently. We might have different habits, different training to our mind. But if we recognize that sameness, we all come from the same source. And we don't have to stay with the aggression that says that I have to protect myself from you. I am you. You are me. We just have different circumstances that we are dealing with. Release the arms, please. Unwind your legs, come forward. Forward fold first if you can. Getting ahead of myself. Good. You hope for a model that will keep track of your brain when you can't. The goddess pose is you can birth everything from yourself. So even if your habits have been one that have had their own version of aggression, their own version of destruction, you can bring forth from inside you other tools, other things that create a different result. This is the beauty of Durga, is that she has many arms, many options. She says, it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. It doesn't matter what you did a moment ago. This is a new moment. If that option didn't work, choose a different one. The only one stopping you is you. Good. Now walk the hands back up, release the legs, come forward. Forward to hands and knees, sorry. You're all looking at me like, what? Come forward to hands and knees. Can't believe you didn't just read my mind. Ridiculous. Cat cow. If you could just make up the rest of the class for me, that'd be great. Sure you could. Good. Again, you're working that tilt of the pelvis, the tilt of the shoulder blades. Nice. And then come back to stillness, please. Good. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, come back to downward facing dog. Good. Walk your feet forward towards your hands. Good. Standing forward fold. Nice. Then bend your knees, drop your sit bones back and low for chair. Good. Widening those thighs. So pushing the thighs wide and then anchoring through your feet. Push your thighs wide, anchor through your feet, and then arms up. Good. This is again so that you have this sense of these are the knees facing straight ahead. These are the hips in a more neutral forward position, but active. Push those inner thighs wide. Good. And then come all the way up to stand. Yeah, don't let the knees lock, but pull up through your spine. Good. And then bend your knees, come back down, reaching for chair. Good. So the pelvis doesn't fall forward here. You want to have that lift of the front edge of the pelvic bone so it comes off of your thighs. And then draw your low rib cage in, because again, relationship of your upper back and lower spine. Come all the way up to stand. Maintain that relationship. So as you come up to stand, the top of the pelvic bones are still lifting up and your low ribs are still softening down. And then widen your chest. Tops of your thighs move back in space. So Steve, take your thighs back, find your heels again. There it is. Nice, Kristen. Nice, Susan. And then bend your knees one more time, come back to chair. Don't lose the integrity, the relationship between your upper back and your lower spine. Good. And then take fingertips to the floor, straighten the legs and bow. Good. Separate your feet as wide as your mat. Turn your toes out, bend your knees, come into squat. If you need to place a block underneath your seat, go ahead and do that. Good. If you need a blanket rolled up underneath your heels, also a good idea. So there's a hugging in, again, almost that squeezing of the knees towards each other. And then there's a widening through the pelvis. Good. So you're squeezing in, but you're widening and you're lengthening your spine. So lift your chest up. Good. Hug the knees, lift your chest. You got it. Keep elongating the spine, both directions. So your butt is dropping even as you are hugging those knees. Beautiful. And then watch, if your knees are not pointing towards your second toe, maybe you have to think about changing the angle of your feet. Good. And then fingertips to the floor, straighten the legs, turn your toes forward and bow. Nice. And then bring your feet closer together, please. So feet come to touch, big toes and inner heels to touch. So bring the feet together. Come up on your tippy toes. And then you're going to bend your knees, keep your feet together, but bend your knees wide into a little frog squat. Start dropping the hips down towards your heels. Good. And walking the hands slightly forward. So it's like you're coming into a forward fold, but then start to drop your heels back down towards the floor. That's it. So it's like your lower spine is reaching down towards the floor. Your butt is reaching down towards the floor, but your chest is extending forward. You got it. And then you can either stay here in that forward fold or go for the little bit of the bound variation where your elbows come to the front of your shins and you wrap the arms around the front of your shins to hold hands behind your heels. So not behind your butt, but behind your heels. Good. You got it, Kristen. Yeah, you got it, Susan. You got it. It's an awkward reach. Yep. Elbow in front of the shin, or just stay where you are. You're good where you are. That's it. That's exactly it. And then just drop your butt any amount. That's it. Good, you guys. So Kristen, don't let your heels sit on your hands. Good. Squeeze your knees in, send your butt back, chest forward. Yeah. And then release the hands down to the floor, please. Nice job. Come back down to sit. Good. And come onto your backs. Nice. All right. Come into happy baby. Draw your knees wide. I said happy baby. Yep. Low back anchors down to the floor. Yeah. And find here where your shoulders are anchored to the floor. Yeah. So let's do this. So find your happy baby the way you normally like it. And then I want you to drop your arms out wide, letter T, bend the elbows into cactus arms. And I want you to feel, can you feel the whole back of your shoulders? Good. So drop those forearms down to the floor, Kristen. Other way. There you go. Yeah. So I want you to feel, right, what it feels like. You've got to hold your legs in that squat position, press your low back down to the floor, engage that low belly so that you stay wide in your sacrum. Knees are still drawing towards your armpits. They're still wide. Good. But you're also spreading wide through the tops of your shoulders and pressing out through the backs of your hands. So press the arms into the floor. Feel a lift of your chest, but your ribs, your low ribs soften in and down. Feel the back rib cage and knees are wide and push your low back down to the floor. Yeah. Nice, you guys. And then hug the knees back in towards the chest. Good. Cross your right thigh on top of your left. Separate the feet, reach for your ankles or your shins. Again, we're just doing a lot of rotating the legs, right? Internal, external, internal, external. So happy baby was external. Here we go, internal again. And this is really what we want, is we want there to be a fluid awareness of the thigh bones being able to rotate in the hip socket. So if there's not muscular engagement that happens, then we don't release the tension that's already there. And if we don't move the legs in both directions, then we don't create an awareness of where neutral is, first of all, but we don't create an awareness of how to actually consciously rotate the thighs in the hip socket. Right? We just rely on things like turn your feet this wide and then make your knees point this way. That doesn't always work. Release your feet. Keep the right leg on top of the left. Just squeeze your shins together so your legs are in eagle. Good. And as you press your shins together, I want you to try to widen your thighs. So you're pushing your shins together, but then try and pull your thighs apart. And then press your low back down to the floor. Get wide through your low back. Good. And then release, please. Hug the knees in towards the chest. And then switch sides. Take the left leg on top of the right. Separate the feet, reach for the ankles or the shins. Good. And again, if you are pulling your feet aggressively wide away from each other, that's going to aggravate your knees. So you still want to have a sense that your knees, even in this position, are tracking towards second or third toe. If that's not the angle that's happening, I need you to change. Yeah, you're good, Susan. I need you to change how you are orienting your legs. So even though your feet are pulling wide for a second, feel what it's like to squeeze them towards each other, like there's a rubber band around them. So the pulling them wide is actually against resistance. So they're still moving away from each other, but at the same time, you're squeezing them in so they can't go too far. And then press your low back down to the floor. Good. Right, the internal awareness of how do I rotate my legs in my pelvis. That's the power of goddess pose. It's not just can I get into a high squat and hold it. It's if I know where my rotational power comes from, then I can find the place where there's good integration of my legs in my pelvis, my shoulders in my arms and my shoulders. And then I can hold easily. Good. Release the feet, please. Squeeze the shins together. So don't change the wrap of the legs, just squeeze the shins together. And then as you're pressing the shins together, widen your inner thighs, pull them apart. And keep your low back anchored down to the floor. And soften your ribs. Again, if you are aggressively squeezing your legs and it's pulling your back into an arch, balance that with softening the front body into the back body. Good. And then release, please. Unwind the legs, hug your knees in towards your chest. Good. Roll yourself forward and up to sit. So roll on your spine. Come all the way up. Nice. Cross the ankles, roll forward, actually all the way onto hands and knees. Come back to downward facing dog. Okay. Pigeon pose. Right leg comes up and back. Bend the knee, kick your heel in towards your butt first, stack the right hip on top of the left, and then move your knee wide so that your thigh parallels the floor. Pull your knee forward towards your right armpit so that your thigh is paralleling the floor. So like you're gonna pull it forward towards your armpit. Yep. So it's like you're making a 90-degree angle with that knee. Good, Susan. Kristen, pull the knee forward more. Forward, but that's it, exactly. Good, so you really have to feel the power of what it takes to lift that thigh open. Good. Now swing it back behind you, down dog split. Nice. Now bring the knee forward for pigeon. Good. So the heel crosses in. There you go. And stay upright. I know. We're not going to hold it for that long. Don't worry. Good. Because again, there's a great stretch that happens in pigeon through the hips, through the pelvis, through a lot of things. But we rarely stay upright. So stay up on your fingertips, keep your chest lifted. And that feeling of I am squeezing my legs towards each other and I am pulling up through my spine. So if you feel pretty comfortable here, take your arms to the sky or hands behind the head. Either one is a good option. And then really pull the ribs in, root the legs, squeeze in and push into the floor and rise up, spine long. Nice, Kristen. Good. One more breath. And then release. Nice job. Hands to the floor. Tuck the back toes. Lift the back knee. Downward facing dog. Again, I know it's very strange to move through poses with such purpose. There's nothing in between. Good. Take the other leg up, please. Left leg up and back. Bend the knee, kick your heel in towards your butt, stack the hip, and then pull that knee forward towards your left armpit so that your thigh parallels the floor. Good. And that right heel, that supporting heel, don't let it fly open. Squeeze it in towards the midline and then really lift from the inner thigh. Scoop your low belly so your pelvis doesn't fly all the way open. Lift that inner thigh. Yeah. Good. And then swing that left leg straight back behind you, down dog split. Nice. And then bring the left knee forward and wide for pigeon. Good. And stay upright. So use blocks underneath the hands if you need. Susan, maybe draw that heel deeper in so that you're not so, not quite parallel with that front shin. Give yourself a little bit of a better time. There you go. Good. And then again, you're pushing down into the floor. You're lengthening through your spine. So you're trying to feel that feeling of internally, right? So this is sometimes pelvic floor can help here. You're squeezing in and up through the internal organs of the pelvis, the internal strength of the pelvis. And then same thing through the length of your spine, pull up. Arms can come to the sky if you can comfortably bring them there or safely bring them there, or hands behind the head, another good option. But pull your ribs in. Try not to fall into that arched spine. Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up, and press into your legs. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Sit towards that left hip, please. Swing the right leg around. Yep, right leg comes straight out in front of you. Good. Bring the bottom of the left foot to the floor, knee up towards the ceiling. So not Janushirshasana, bring that knee up. And then step your left foot over top of your right thigh. There you go. Right arm wraps around the left knee, left hand comes behind you, spinal twist. Good. So in this variation, I really want you concentrating on squeezing that thigh up and in towards your belly and lifting your belly up to meet that thigh. And feeling again how you're sending your weight forward towards the front edge of your sit bones. That's going to lift the back of your pelvis up longer. Gives you more length to your spine. Good. And then release, come back to center. Unwind the legs, left leg comes forward. Right knee bends, cross it over the left thigh. Good. Left arm wraps around, right arm comes back behind you. Spinal twist. Good. So Susan, just switch your arms, twist the other way. There you go. Yep. And again, your belly is reaching up to meet your thigh, and your thigh is reaching up to meet your belly. So again, you're angling that thigh inward, stretching the outer thigh, stretching the outer hip, letting the groin soften in so that there's not a pulling. The groin is already pulled forward because our pelvis is stuck, tucked under, which for some of us that's true, is that when you try to externally rotate, your groin's going to pull like crazy. It's going to feel terrible. So part of what's here is we tilt to get into that neutral pelvis so that the groin can release. Good. Come back to center, please. Stretch that right leg back out in front of you again. Bend the left knee again. Cross it over the right thigh. Yeah. And then bend your right thigh as well and curl that heel towards your left butt cheek. So you're bending both knees. Yeah. Good. And if that's not available, keep the leg straight, no problem. Good. Yeah, so half floor to the fishes. So the knees are dropping towards the floor in this, or a little bit more towards the floor. So Susan, you look like you're, yeah, all right. You're good where you are. You're good where you are. Okay. What leg do we have up there? The right knee? Left knee is over? Okay. So I don't know what just happened to my brain. Left hand comes behind you, right arm up to the sky. Try to take it into the elbow hook this time. So bring the elbow to the outside of the knee and push the elbow against the knee, push the knee against the elbow. Both sit bones should stay on the floor. So if you come into that twist and your left butt cheek is popping up, draw it down and lift the back of your sacrum, lift the back of your spine. You're still pulling your belly up to meet your legs and dropping those groins. Good. Chest wide. So the left arm goes wide, the right arm goes wide. That's it. From the top of your chest, it goes wide. Yeah. And then release, come back to center, please. That seems way more complicated than it should have in my brain. Stretch the legs out, and we're going to go the other way. Good. So left leg is straight. Bring the right knee in, cross it over, and then bend the left knee as well. Let it curl towards the other sit bone. And again, if this position doesn't work, just keep the left leg out straight. Totally fine. Okay, left hand comes behind you. No, right hand comes behind you. Left arm comes to the sky. Good. And twisting, hooking the left elbow to the outside of the right knee. Good. So that right hand that's behind you, it's tempting to lean into it. Use it as a way to push the floor away. Don't lean into it. Push the floor away. So you have muscular energy on that right side body, keeping you lifted. And again, you're tilting the pelvis slightly forward, top of the pelvis slightly forward. Angle those groins down and lift through your side body, lift through your back. And then especially that elbow that is hooked from the top of your chest, open your left chest a little wider. That's it. And then open your right chest a little wider. Nice. And then release, come back to center, please. Good. Unwind your legs. Yeah, stretch your legs straight out in front of you. Good. Flexing the feet. Inhale the arms to the sky. Bow forward, Paschimottanasana. Again, you could use a strap here around your feet if you'd like. Good. Can you feel the breath in your back? Can you feel the stretch of your spine? Right? If your attitude is that you attach to or you focus on where the restriction is, and you can only feel what your limits are, then you're going to feel disappointed. You're going to feel like there's not enough in this world to bring happiness. There's not enough in this world to overcome those feelings of limitation or suffering. So instead, can you feel the sensation of stretch? Can you feel the sensation of expansion, even as it comes to the edge of the limitation? This is the goddess that says, don't get aggressive and protective the minute that you feel that there's an edge. Instead, can you feel the energy of expansion and say, wherever that edge is, it's a meeting. It's a meeting of two things. And that meeting can be peaceful. It doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be aggressive. Walk yourself back up. Good. Bend the knees. Roll forward, please. Come up to hands and knees. Downward facing dog, just because, again, it's a nice transition to stretch your back. One more breath. Good. And then step your, I'm going to say left foot forward between the hands, because that will have Steve facing the camera the way I want him to be. And then walk your hands inside. So left foot forward, walk your hands inside the foot, walk to your right till you come to the center of your mat, turn your toes, come back to wide legs. Good. Take your hands to your hips, come all the way up to stand. Right? So I started you from that angle, right? Because this is your version in your mind when I say take your legs wide. This is what you did, right? So now, without moving your feet at all, turn your feet out to 45 degrees. From this position, is it possible for you to bend your knees? So you have to already be from the top of your thighs, starting to rotate outward, which means that you also have to send your groins back. Groins go back, but thighs go out. And then as you're bending your knees, can your knees track over your second or third toe? If the answer is no, straighten your legs and reset your feet. So this is where you might have to heel toe your feet in a little bit closer. Good. Maybe change the angle. Maybe 45 degrees is too much. Maybe it's too little. And then come back again. Bending your knees again, rotating wide from the tops of your thighs. That will take your knees wider. Anchor through your big toes. Drop straight down as your thighs go wide, your pelvis going straight down. And you're still squeezing those thighs in towards the center of your pelvis. So squeeze in. And then take your arms up to cactus arms. Rib cage draws in, so that same feeling that you had when you were on the floor holding happy baby, press the low rib cage in so that it feels like your back is pressing into something solid, and then the palms fall back. Good. Nice. So I didn't quite say that the way that I wanted to, but Steve's doing something great. So I want your elbows to come slightly forward, but your forearms to go slightly back. That's it. So again, we're rotating the arms in the shoulder socket. Press into your feet, drop into your heels, come up on the balls of your feet. That'll really get you into the feeling of downward energy and pull up through your spine. And then drop your heels again, but keep that feeling of lift. And then straighten the legs, please. Nice job. I know. Drop the right arm down the right thigh. You can keep your legs as they are and just reach the left arm up to the sky. Good. So just a side body reaching, just a side body stretching. Good. Come back up to center, go the other way. Drop the left hand down, the left leg, right arm up alongside your ear, side body reach. Good. And then come back up to center. Nice. So you set your legs once already, so hang out where you are, and then start to bend your knees again, lean slightly forward. So bend your knees, drop into that squat, take your hands to your thighs, and just do a little bit of rotating your pelvis, arching and curling, rotating. Good. And maybe that means your knees can't be bent to their full capacity, but bend your knees, rotate your pelvis. And if you need to move your feet in order for that to be available, move your feet, because this pose becomes possible with the openness of your pelvis, not where you're able to force your feet. So you got to work with what your pelvis is capable of. Good. And then try to find where there's that feeling of neutral, where you have that lift of the front edge of the pelvic bones, the widening of the inner knees, of the inner thighs, but where you are dragging those thigh bones up and in towards the center of your body. Pull them in. Press into your heels, arms to the sky this time. Interlace your fingers, point your fingers, go straight up like a little cowboy gun. This is Kali Mudra. Kali is the fierce form of Durga, the one that arrives when Durga's normal persona is not intense enough. And so it brings with it even greater clarity of how much you go into aggression, how easily, how destructive are you capable of being to yourself, not just to other people, but to yourself. And Kali is channeling that energy into more peaceful means, becoming so honest and clear. You go beyond your own reactions. You obliterate your own inner aggression. One more breath. You're really wide with those thighs, but pull up through your spine, reach through those fingers, and then release, straightening the legs. Turn your toes forward so the feet are parallel. Let your hands come down to the floor, forward fold, and then bend your knees, wiggle your hips like a hula dancer. Yeah, soften the knees, move your pelvis. Beautiful. And then slowly come to stillness, please. Walk back towards the top of your mat. Good. Downward facing dog. Drop down to your knees. Child's pose. It might even feel good here to bring the knees closer together, closer to Kundalini. They call it rock pose or baby pose. It's rock pose when you're sitting up, but knees together instead of knees wide. And again, can you feel the stretch of your spine in this position? Good. Slowly release, please. Find your way onto your backs. Optional here, if you would like to take a little supine Baddha Konasana, so bottoms of the feet together, knees drop wide. Good, feet to the floor. If you would like to place blocks underneath the knees in order to make that a little bit more supportive or a little bit more restorative, you can do that. Nice if you're taking that Baddha Konasana position to take your arms out to cactus arms as well, or arms overhead holding opposite elbows. It will create the same kind of openness in the chest. If you'd like to come into that for a couple of breaths, you're welcome to. If you'd like to take any final spinal twists, you're welcome to. And then if you are in Baddha Konasana, when you feel like you are ready to come into Shavasana, simply straighten the legs. If you want to stay where you are as your Shavasana, stay where you are. Male or female makes no difference. The goddess is the essence of what we are, the manifestation of what we are. So Feel yourself with every breath, knowing that you can generate from you incredibly beautiful things, incredibly destructive things. And they are often the same things, just pointed in different directions. Breathe very deeply and maybe remember the image of the goddess, the image of Durga. Very gently bring the awareness back to your breath. Letting the body begin to stretch and move, whatever ways serve it well. Bring the knees in towards your chest. Roll to your right side. And take a moment there before you begin to push the floor away. To come back to an upright seated position. Hands coming to rest at the heart center, palm to palm. The goddess pose asks us to bring a awareness and a unity to what the lower body and the upper body are doing. They mirror each other in equality. In the same way, it's that ancient birthing position that says that whatever is in your most spiritual self, it appears in the world. It's a reflection. And so if what's going on in your mind or in your internal spaces is disruptive, destructive, that's what you will see in the world also. And what we see in the world is our combined experience. So what you bring to that experience, if it's your own reactions, your own aggression, it makes that reflective aggression worse, bigger. But you have inside of you the ability to generate something else. You have more tools. So Durga asks you to be the one that doesn't try to just resolve the aggression on the outside to end it, but to end the aggression that lives in you. So that's what's reflected in the world everywhere around you is peace. That you become a peaceful presence and that the air around you becomes permeated with that. It will start to change the reflection. You have the power to do it. Durga reminds you, you've always had the power to do it. Close the sound of Om, deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Happy Navaratri. Tomorrow begins the 3 nights to Lakshmi, and then after that, 3 nights to Saraswati. So if you're celebrating, keep celebrating. And if not, you'll hear me talk about all of them. So you have to unmute yourself to say anything to me, and we've only got a minute before I've got to get off for Valerie. So best to just say bye.
Okay, just remind me what to do.
Nothing. When I end the meeting, it'll stop. It'll say it's converting. Just let it convert, and then share it with me on Google Drive.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
no problem. Thank you.
Bye.